because obviously their concentration is not Iran. And I'm very grateful to him for a very enlightening presentation. You gave us a perspective as to why things are not going well in Iran. And obviously we opened up avenues for perhaps further investigation as far as Iran and the other Asian economies are concerned. I go way back. We were classmates back in 1977 at Carleton University, and we worked in many places together, including Liverpool. We taught together, and he came to York a year ahead of me, and we've been playing in the soccer team together. So he did me a big favor to come here.
We had a good soccer team too.
What I'd like to talk here is you need to help me. I may have to jump around on that to other files. Okay. What I'd like to talk about has an Iranian focus, obviously, and I'd like to draw on certain key issues. I'm not presenting an exhaustive list of issues by any stretch of imagination, because that would be too time-consuming. I'd like to, however, emphasize on certain key sectors of the economy which would be considered as drivers of growth, including oil and gas. I'd like to point out certain weaknesses which have developed in these sectors, and then I'm going to touch on economic policies very briefly, including subsidization, the very loose monetary policy, and how the position of Iran from the perspective of an oil exporting country has deteriorated to the extent that Iran is expected to become an oil importing nation in about 10 to 15 years, the way things are shaping up. I thought the best way to look at it, and that's what, after I saw my colleague's slides, I thought the best way perhaps would be to start with the following slide. And the slide is the economic ranking, which you need to go to another slide. Yeah, it says, if you come out of that, I'm sorry.
The file.
Yes. And it's a bit of, it's called like that. Yep. The way it is, it won't. But,
I can include this slide.
Was it better?
all right, the idea here is business environment that we were discussing a few minutes ago. The idea is how to rank countries based on that notion, and there are several criteria, 8 criteria actually: ease of doing business, starting a business, dealing with construction permits, employing workers, registration, credit, obtaining credit, taxes, and so on and so forth. And from this perspective, countries were ranked, and Singapore comes on the top, followed by New Zealand, Hong Kong, China, Canada, somewhere in the vicinity of probably 9 and 10 is in the 9th position. And as you go down, you get to see other countries in the place. And if you go a little bit slowly, so you see which other countries are ahead of us. Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you in charge of this. Like for instance, these are highly developed countries, but you see, for instance, Estonia, you see Israel, United Arab Emirates, Puerto Rico, Colombia, etc. And you keep going down, you're still in the top 50. And in fact, Iran is not even in the next 50. I think probably did go down to 113.
Really?
Okay.
We have the raw here.
So we need to go up a little bit. Yeah, right there.
After
138th position, Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay. And
What's the source of the data?
the source of data is the World Bank.
Well,
When you put this in context of what my colleague demonstrated earlier, there's no wonder that the foreign direct investment, as I said very facetiously, we got high marks for consistency, getting nothing. And that probably, you saw that flat line at the bottom matching the horizontal axis for a very long stretching period of time. So it's just that kind of environment which is not conducive to foreign direct investment. It's a kind of environment that is not inviting for transfer of technology and so on and so forth. So I thought this would be a good way to set the stage to have a sort of a grasp of what is going on. And now, I'd like to address a couple of underlying causes. Number one is the dependency on oil. And that's nothing new. We have known that for as far back as our memory serves. That was the case before the revolution. That has been the case after the revolution. And but nonetheless, the dependency has not gone away. Numbers are striking, however. 80% of total export do come from oil and gas. And you've got to remember, I'm going to show you some numbers in a few minutes. You've got to remember that we don't export natural gas. We are a net importer of natural gas, despite the fact that we hold the second largest natural gas reserves in the world after Russia. So when we talk about here the exports of oil and gas, we're referring to oil primarily. But that's sort of combined together. The revenue generated through the export, 80% of total export generates 40% of GDP of the economy, in fact. So Iran is heavily dependent on export of oil. So if you just put yourself in a situation that, to think very broadly that what has shapen up in the last several years, then you can immediately conclude that, in fact, the recent drop in the amount of volume of exports out of the country, with the decline of the price of oil since its peak at $147 a couple of years ago, and so forth, then the situation has deteriorated quite extensively. Now, at the moment, Iran. This was the major, right? Yes. Okay. Iran's production is about 3.7 million barrels a day. This is production of crude oil, which is below what it was given to it as an OPEC quota. So it's not even up to par from that perspective. Why is that the case? Well, the reason is that there are obstacles in production, and there are also tremendous increases. 6.1 million barrels a day, and of which about 700,000 barrels were consumed. So the export of the nation was in excess of 5. That's about 36 years ago. Now, there has been a natural decline of mature oil fields and low oil recovery rates. That's one of the reasons that why 6.5 has fallen to the current 3.1%. The infrastructure is aging. Most oil fields here go back to 1920s, and they have not been upgraded since. So there's a natural wear and tear and deterioration of oil facilities. You've got to put in money in order to be able to extract more.